I'm in Venice right now, a city that needs no introductions, and in this video we're gonna explore the city. Okay, it's 3 p.m. and we just got into Venice. Like, this island was built on the middle of some clay in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. Once you're on the island, the only way to get around is by walking and by boats. And you can get around by boats because there's like, I think 170 canals going through this island. There's also more than 400 bridges crossing these canals, so you could kind of walk to most places. You just have to find the right bridges, and Google Maps doesn't work that great, especially when you're in the narrow alleys. But there are also places like the Grand Canal, this thing, which goes through the middle of Venice, and there aren't a lot of bridges crossing the Grand Canal. That's when you need something like a boat. We got a one-day pass for using as many boats and buses as we need in the Venice area. That cost us like 25 euros each, which is not cheap. It's a lot more expensive than what I remember it used to be 5 years ago when I was here the last time. But it's a very interesting system. It works just like the metro would in any other city, except it's boats, because cars and bikes are not allowed in Venice, or the proper Venice at least. Right now we're next to Rialto Bridge, which is one of the more famous spots in Venice, and from what I remember from last time, it's a really pretty spot for sunset. So historically Venice was only accessible by boats because it was an island, but like 150 years ago they built train tracks going up to the island, and then Mussolini came and built the bridge today that allows buses like the ones we use to get to Venice from the mainland. And the system for vaporitas here is like really fascinating. It's a lot like a metro. You tap your like pass or whatever you have, get on, you see other people get off, see a list of stations that that particular boat is going to. I haven't seen anything like this anywhere else in the world so far. Right, so we're on the Rialto Bridge, which definitely has a prettier view during sunset time, but any time of the day you can kind of just sit here and appreciate how much traffic passes through this Grand Canal. Because they don't have cars, the things that are passing through the Grand Canal is not only just tourists on boats. It's everything from postal delivery to food delivery to cop cars. Everything that happens on this island has to move through the Grand Canal in a sense. So that's why there's always tons of traffic. So this bridge was actually built 500 years ago. Considering how wide the Grand Canal is, this was actually considered an engineering masterpiece for that time. So historically, the commercial center of Venice has been in Rialto, on around the bridge. And if you come here to this day even, you'll find lots of shops like the ones around me on the bridge or right next to the bridge. So right now we're gonna go to the other center, arguably the more important center of Venice, which is the political center and the religious center at San Marco Square, which should be like 1 kilometer that way. So one of the most fun things about Venice is getting lost in its alleys, and that makes it very unique, and it's a very unavoidable thing because Google Maps doesn't really work over here. You're gonna have to cross a lot of alleys and across the bridges to get what you want. Something really interesting is even for the picturesque Venice canals that you see on TV or on the internet, these still smell like dirty water. So this is definitely not something you ever want to swim in. That's why you don't see people swimming in here. Okay, so right now I am in San Marco Square, which is the historic political and religious center of Venice that I was talking about earlier. You can access it from the alleys like we did coming from Rialto, but you can also come here from the Grand Canal, passing through the 2 historic columns that let you enter this area from the port basically. And when you come to San Marco Square, you start to get an idea of the grandeur of this place, or how important this place was historically. For hundreds of years, Venice was the richest city in Europe. It was one of the 6 biggest cities in Europe, and it was the capital of the Venetian Empire. And it was the capital of the Venetian Empire that dominated much of Europe and all of the Eastern Mediterranean. So if you've seen my previous videos from the Balkans on the Adriatic coast, and I talked about the history, I often mentioned that a lot of these cities were often captured by the Venetian Empire. So this was the capital of that Venetian Empire right there basically. You know, like 1,000 years ago, there was no trade with the Americas, or there wasn't a lot of trade with the Asias. Most of the trade that happened in Europe happened through the Mediterranean. And Venice just happened to be situated at the perfect spot where they could use their where they could use Venice was situated in a very good place where they could use their geographical position and their very powerful navy to exert their forces on surrounding cities and regions. So if you come to the middle of San Marco Square on one side, you'll see this very tall 300 feet bell tower. It was built like 1200 years ago, and right next to it is also the thing that was built 1200 years ago, San Marco's Cathedral, without a doubt the most recognizable building in all of Venice, and a very historic basilica or a cathedral. A very interesting thing about San Marco's Basilica are these 4 horses right on top of the entrance, which are called San Marco's horses. These were previously in Constantinople. If you see my video from Istanbul, they were in Sultan Ahmed. The fall of Constantinople is often attributed to the Ottomans, who kind of took over the city at last and made it like sort of a Muslim center of the world. But 200 years before that, the Venetians actually sacked Constantinople and sort of weakened it to a severe extent. And that's when they grabbed these 4 horses, these 4 historic horses that had been to a lot of places before that, and brought them right here to Venice and put them on top of San Marco's Basilica. But the horses that you see right now are actually not the original horses. They have been put inside for preservation. These are like replicas, but you can still come and see where they used to be. So right next to San Marco's Basilica is the Doge's Palace. And this is where the Doge used to rule from, and this is arguably the most important political building in Europe for like a span of 400 years. The Doge was basically an elected king of sorts who ruled over the Venetian Empire. He wasn't truly a democratically elected figure. He was still a noble who was elected by the other nobles of Venice and selected to rule over the Venetian Empire. Behind me in this building was also the Venetian Senate, where they made all the laws governing Venice. So one of the interesting things about the Doge's Palace is that it's separated only by this narrow canal from the ancient Venetian prison. So whoever got sentenced to prison time just crossed over this bridge right here behind me called the Bridge of Sighs and went into the prison. So it's kind of like poetic. They got a last view of the prettiest part of Venice before they were stuck in prison for who knows how many years. So I was just like walking past the next spot, and I ran into some Bangladeshi people from my home country, and they just took me into the restaurant and got me a Coke. So it's always nice to meet people from back home when you're traveling. Good thing about being Bangladeshi is there's going to be Bangladeshis literally everywhere you go in the world. So the reason Venice was able to rule such a large empire was largely because of its navy, and the reason it had such a powerful navy was because of this place right behind me, the Venetian arsenal, or their ancient shipyard. And the thing that made this shipyard very special was that despite being almost 1,000 years old, this is from the 12th century, they were using some kind of ancient like assembly line production system, and they were able to build 1 warship a day, which is uncomparable to anything else from that time. So like I mentioned earlier, I was here 5 years ago, but the weather back then was so different. It's not even comparable to what I'm seeing right now. It was like super rainy, it was kind of chilly even though it was summer, and I was wearing my hoodie the whole time and just like trying to escape the heavy rain while I was trying to just go around and see places. Now it's so sunny, I'm like sweating so bad with the shirt on. This is completely different.
Auntie জন্য কিছু একটা নিয়ে
Auntie জন্য একটা gift gondola
No.
Venice এটা একটা স্মৃতি
So I met some more Bangladeshis who like recognized me from my videos, and then they got me a hat, which was very well needed because it's so sunny, and they got me some soft drinks and wanted me to like sit down for coffee, but I'm rushing, so I couldn't really stop. But it's always nice to meet people who like my videos, I guess. Something I forgot to mention earlier about this prison is that it's a tourist spot, because a lot of famous people throughout history have spent time in this prison, including but not limited to the late great Casanova. I'm not sure who's playing here, but there's some massive concert going on, and they're shutting down like half of St. Mark's Square for that. Okay, so now I'm gonna get some coffee in San Marco Square from a place that is supposed to be the longest running place that is still serving coffee in Italy, the oldest place that is still serving coffee. Inside or outside?
Now it's closed. It's closed.
Okay, so it turns out that cafe we're trying to go to is closing early because of a concert, but right now we're gonna go and find a gondola ride.
Wait a moment, you. Lady on the right.
Grazie.
It's important during the tour,
Yes.
don't move because it's very stable, okay?
Okay, we just got on the gondola, and it's very important to sit in a certain way because this is like barely balanced. So they told us not to move, and we got on one by one. Otherwise, this thing might like easily topple over to one side. Our gondola guy was singing a song, and then my dad started singing a Bangla song that like people who are rowboats sing in Bangladesh, and then he stopped singing, but he started again. So what's really cool here? Oh, we're going under a tunnel. Our gondola definitely looks like it's very tilted on one side, like heavy on the side I'm sitting on. So one thing about these gondola rides, it's not just like a simple rowing your boat through the canals. They use the walls, they like kick off against things, against different stands to sort of balance it. It requires more skill than I would have thought. So we've entered the Grand Canal again, and we're about to go under the Rialto Bridge where we were earlier today.
Everything, pizza, with calcio, with everything. See now in Venice the menu
So what's really interesting about Venice is that the life here is so centered around the rivers that a lot of people literally just have like private boats that goes up all the way to their doorways. The canals go all the way to their homes, and that's the only way to get in. You see a lot of houses with gates that don't lead to a road but to the canals themselves. So we're taking a small break to get some pizza. So we're ordering some pizza, which is actually at a very reasonable price because at the main square everything's like just ridiculously priced. But if you go like a few alleys down, it's like €5 for a pretty big pizza, which is pretty filling. Not bad at all. And turns out the shopkeepers were also from Bangladesh, and they recognized my videos. So thank you guys for watching my videos. And they gave us free food too, which is pretty nice.
একটা চিপস দাও চলে যাবো ওটা বাহ
হাগু করে দাও এটাই ভালো বাহ
এবার সরা
So there's this big scam that used to be very prevalent over here like 5 years ago when I was here. It's that people offer you just free rice so you can get a photo with the pigeons like standing on your hand basically. And I figured out that you can pretty much do that with just a closed fist because pigeons are dumb and they don't know if there's food inside it or not. But some people would come and give you free rice or wouldn't tell you the price at first. Then for a few grains of price they'd try to charge you like €5. And then if you don't pay that money, they would call the cops because it is illegal to feed these pigeons because Italy has like a crisis with too many pigeons, or Venice definitely does, too much pigeon shit everywhere. So it's illegal to feed the pigeons, and the cops don't like that, so they will give you a fine.
Buonasera, it's not allowed food. No, it's not allowed.
Okay, thank
We have no food. Buonasera.
So be careful. I have to say this plaza or square looks a lot more picturesque around sunset time than in the middle of the day. Last time I was here, I took a video of these gondolas exactly from this spot 5 years ago. Okay, so for the last stop of the day, we came back to Rialto Bridge to catch the last bit of daylight. So yesterday was pretty late by the time we were done filming the video, and it was kind of dark, so I'm just filming the outro today from Venice Mestre. We're staying at a different city near Venice, not in Venice, because it's cheaper to stay here, usually cheaper to find food if you know where you're looking, and stuff stays open late too. I stayed at Venice last time, but that was just, I was kind of in a pickle. I couldn't find a lot of things, just essentials to buy for a good price when I was staying at Venice. Maybe I didn't know the right places, so this time we're staying here. But we're heading out of Venice right now. So if you like this video, feel free to like it. If you want to watch more videos, feel free to subscribe to my channel or follow my Facebook page. And if you want real-time travel updates, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Nadir on the go. I'll catch you guys in the next video from God knows where.